Hello, I'm Richard Raffan. This is another of the Four Ways videos. Four Ways is a group of four of us, Sam Angelo, Mike Peace, Tomislav Tomašić and myself. And we select a project, and what you see on our four separate videos are how we go about making it and our thoughts behind it. This month it's a natural edge bowl, and I encourage you to look at the other four videos, and you'll find the links of those just down below. What I have here is a piece of pistachio, part of a log I was given about 3 weeks ago now, and some of you might have seen the test bowl I did turned out of it. It proves to be really quite stable. But my aim is going to be to make a bark rimmed bowl with the bark still on, and probably with a round base, because it is green wood, and I will have to decide a bit later on, depending on quite how deep the whole thing's going to be. I'll have to decide whether I want to make it a little tripod bowl with 3 little feet or rounded. But I don't really know what I'm going to do until I manage to cut the blank, and I don't know exactly what's going on inside here. There is a split there, but first I'm going to just cut this in half and see what I've got inside. So I'm basically taking the diameter, transferring it up there, and going to take a cut across. So that's rocking a little bit. Just wedge it up. Well, it's certainly got some nice colour in it. The main thing when I look at the end is to just see where the main split is, which is across there. I'm actually going to work that bit, I think, rather than this, for no particular reason. So, going to have to decide what kind of wacky rim I want. With a split there, I've got the choice of to do with a sharp pencil, couldn't I? So looking at the end grain, there's a split there, there's a split there, and that really kind of runs through to there. So if I'm looking at a piece like this in terms of a natural edge, and it's an outflowing bowl, I've got so many options here. I can cut it right the way across and have a bowl, not a particularly well balanced one. I quite like to have the high points of a bowl in one plane, and then the sides in their own separate plane, horizontal to the surface they're sitting on. So I think I'm going to go, probably, you'd like to see a bit of a lump, I expect, in what I'm turning, so we'll just have a go at this bit here, and that means I can probably get 2 bowls. Now this is proving a little more difficult than I thought it might be. It's not really quite big enough for a bowl, and I'm just going to abort this one, and this is just going to be not a natural edge bowl. I'll cut this for a separate blank. That will be the top, and the pattern will go down to the middle, so I'll just do that now anyway. So that will be the top of my bowl, this will be the bottom, so I'll just put a flat foot on it. Set aside for now. Split there means I'm going to just see what's happening at the other end. Split. So that's got a big split there, a split there, so might as well go through on that line. Right, I can now, I suppose I'm going to cut this little bit off, just so I've got a steep kind of bit of plain timber on the end. Oops. So might have been better doing it that way. I'm still looking at a bowl here with possibly some black in the bottom of it. Well, I wasn't thinking there was going to be much happening in here, but in fact I'm going to mount it up there, and we might end up with a very long, thin, almost like an aeroplane wing. So it could be quite exciting. This has a bit of turning. I'm going to just cut off a bit parallel to the top. Right, we'll go to the lathe. I've found center using dividers, and what I'm going to do is cut a V groove into which this spur drive is going to fit, 2-spur drive, and if I can get that sitting into a V groove, then the drive's not going to spin into the wood and bore a hole into the wood. So that's the center. This chisel is actually very slightly wider, so I come in from either side. Let's cut the end. Doesn't need to be much, just enough for the teeth to dig into. The groove has been cut along the kind of top of the ridge, because I want to have this the 2 highest points, which will be here. It just goes into there. I want them at right angles to the lathe axis, and then once I start, well, I can check that. Can use a pencil just to spin that around. That's about right, and I'm going to want these lower sides in the same position as well, and that's going to shift. That's all going to have to shift up to about there. So that's still in the right plane. That's looking as though I sent it too far. That's got to come back this way. But what I'm going to do is take off a fair amount here, and then I'll get a better I'm going to take a fair amount off here, and I'll get a better idea of where I am then. So that's going to need to be tightened right up. You really want to make sure that that corner is spinning free of the rest. Got the rest fairly low here, and I'm going to be using the 3/8 flute, deep fluted bowl gouge for this one. This is the Gur tool, the Czech one. And the idea at this stage is just to sweep the edge through an arc, because there's an awful lot of space being turned here. That's not supposed to happen, of course, with the groove, but it has. Just tighten everything up. What I do have to be careful of when you've got bark on, bark doesn't always want to stay on, but the most important thing really at this stage is not to cut into the bark that way. Better to come in from the bark side, so any pressure you put on the bark is against the wood which is supporting it, whereas here you can easily pull it off. So I've got that little chamfer, which means I can get the rest banjo in a bit closer. This time I'm just going to have my finger underneath the rest, just push the tool in using the right wing. Got the tool handle right against the side, so there's plenty of support for it. At this stage I should be getting a better idea of the alignment. Right, that's round on the end grain, and it's also shifted. So at the moment this all needs to go that way, which almost implies that I got the alignment wrong first with the ridge in relation to the lathe axis. Now coming around here, that's all got to shift that way a bit. Now you can spend a lot of time messing around here. Alright, so that's got bark, that's, I'm still missing a bit there, but I don't know quite how much what's going to happen here yet. Oh, and now this all looks as though it needs to go that way. Tighten it all up and come in from, oh, you can hear it rattling. I can see a double image up on the upper horizon. Well, so I've got my rest a bit high, just coming down to, it's just slightly below centre. I'm beginning to get a bit better idea of what's happening. Come in from the bark now, in from about there. Right, so that's actually boring in, and just going to tighten it up, I think. Nothing more boring than a demo which goes dead right. Tighten again. So I can clearly have cut a deeper groove. But I think once I get the alignment sorted, there's some lower bark, and lower bark there isn't remotely in sight, so I need to really scallop a lot more of this out. heard a bit of bark flying or something flying off. Now I'm still trying to get down to this level where I'm poking with the gouge. Bit more speed now. I'm got rid of most of the weight. I'm not supposed to cut against the grain, but when the alternative method is likely to pull the bark off, that's what you do. Just swinging that tool in now. I hope now I've got bark all the way round. Yep, beginning to get to where I want to be. This is getting very thin up there. Right, I've got a bark rim attached to a teeny little flat bit just there. I'm not really too worried by that at the moment. Next thing I want is a foot I can grab. Up there. Let's use this as 3/8 spindle gouge. Just gets into the corner a bit tighter. Right, so all I need is a nice crisp corner in there for the jaws to go into. There's a great lump which has got to come off there. That's all at an angle. And I've got a flat there, but I'm almost down to my bowl shape. Moment, just getting rid of everything I don't want in the final piece. Right, so I've got a foot there I can grip, and all the rest will be done in a chuck. It's not quite what I was after in the way that the bowl's off to one side a bit, but I'm going to have to live with that. This is the 55mm jaws, shark jaws on the Vic Mark chuck. And one of the advantages of the longer jaws, the shark jaws, is that you can grip a longer foot, grip up a curve like this, and there's enough of a shoulder there that will true that up. It doesn't need to be flat. You only need to do that on in-grain work, but this will be fine. And all I want in here now is a little square section where I can expand the jaws inside. And I'm going to do that with a 3/4 inch 19mm square end scraper. This is running at just under 1000 RPM, and I'll just bring it up a bit. And I'll bring the rest up a bit so that when I'm working at center, the tool's pitched down very slightly, what's called the negative rate. So the idea here is to get down far enough into solid wood and I'm still not quite there, that I can expand the jaws inside, and I can actually make that a bit smaller too, I see. So coming into solid wood like that, I don't go straight in, go in at a slight angle. It's not quite so aggressive as a cut. Then I can use about a third of the edge just to open that up. That I think will do. And that goes over there. And I can now manipulate this edge a little bit if I want to. And it looks as though I've got it pretty well right first time, but when I was doing the other side, we'll just check now. So hold the pencil on this low side, and right, so it doesn't quite match up with that bit. The whole thing needs to go slightly that way. Right, that's spot on. And if that's spot on, this will not be. So just tighten that up a teeny bit more. And now true all this, and having fixed it, I better check the outer wings too. Did right. So the next thing is to true all this up and then see what I can do with what I've got. I'm going to do this with the 3/8 spindle gouge. Just slightly more convenient than the deep fluted bowl gouge. Tool this up. It's using the left wing. Right, sounds as if it's all running true, which it is. So now we're going to have a foot. This stuff is stable enough that I don't think I need worry about the bottom warping. If I do, I'll just flatten it on a flat board. So I'll have a slightly concave base. But basically now I need to make a shape I can live with, and with this I really have to cut it from the top, and I'm going to sharpen up my bowl gouge just so I've given myself the best chance, and the idea is going to be to cut from the rim here right down into the foot. Whoa! Should have checked, shouldn't I? Right, so that's stuffed up my little bit of rim there, so it means I'm going to have to make one of those nasty entry cuts from space right up, just to eliminate the damage I've just caused. Solid wood. I'm just thinking that here I could have a rim, the bark just kind of flying up, and a little kind of conventional bowl underneath, which I've not tried before, but why not now? And to do that, I'm going to do the rim first. So this is a shear scraper. It's skewed, it's got a rounded side that slides easily up and down the rest. So what I want to do now is to get this rim done. At the moment it's got a slight lump in about there, so the best way is going to be to shear scrape that. So hand on the rest and just squeezing the tool through. And the advantage of using that cut rather than tool flat on the rest is that you only ever have about 2 millimeters of blade in contact with the wood, whereas if it's flat you might have the whole lot and a big catch. So that's beginning to look quite nice. Going to put this into the same chuck, I think. These dividers are set to that chuck diameter. Speed can come up a bit more, maybe not that much. Still a little bit off balance, I can feel it rattling. That's also slightly outside of whack, so I'll true that up. Now the rest is lower than centre, therefore I'm kicking the dividers up at an angle. The mark I make with the left needs to line up with the right point, and I can't see what I'm doing. Hope that doesn't block the camera. Better check. So this is going to have a little foot. That was a bit unnecessary, teeny little catch. Just make sure it didn't go too far in. It did. Start again. A slightly shorter bowl. All three at spindle gouge, a little bit light for this kind of job, but should be okay. So I just want to go round to the bottom of the curve now. I'm actually going to have some kind of groove in there, I think. It's a definite angle. Crisp that up with the scraper. Just getting right in the corner there. And in this situation, it's quite a good thing to go just under what will be a kind of flared rim. So a little spear point scraper is going to get me in under the rim. A bit more. And the idea of that is when you look at it from the side, there's a definite line which you wouldn't have otherwise. Now I'm beginning to look at that and thinking maybe a little bit more flare and a little bit more curve in there would be a good idea, and that's going to happen with the shear scraper, just kind of a power squeeze, sweeping it around the corner. And I'm watching what's happening up on the upper horizon. This is going to be a little devil to sand, but I'll cope with that in a few minutes. So that's not looking too bad. I'm going to shear cut all this now with use the spear point. That's getting difficult to get in with that tool just because it's got such a long kind of point. This one a bit easier. Vibration means I'm just going a little bit too hard, a little bit too much edge in contact with the wood at once. So come back with a little gouge, 3/8 spindle gouge. Now I've got an angle up here, everything's kind of very geometric at the moment, so we'll just keep this as a fairly straight foot, I think. Like I saying, to make another point, you do not need to have a dovetail foot if you've got the diameter the right size. Just chamfer that in a little bit and use the little corner I've got on this tool just to detail the bottom. Need to get in there a bit more, so you can do that with a skew on its side. So that gets sanded, and I don't think there are going to be too many problems except up there. Now the way to sand up in that area is going to be with a block, and I might even get in with one of these pads. Yep, it might be easier, I think. So, and I'll go in first with 180 grit. It's a pretty good surface off the tool. And the main problem is going to be keeping pressure off the bark area while still sanding it. And the wood's wet, damp, so I'm not getting a huge amount of shavings at the moment, but they will come. I don't mean shavings, I mean dust. Right, smooth, lovely. So it hardly needs any more really. Do the whole of the rim. This is 240 grit. That's all this bowl's getting is 240 grit. Doesn't really need any more. 180. There's a fair amount of dust coming off that. just wondering about putting grooves all the way up the side, just as a little bit kind of extra stuff. This wood scrapes very well. So this is 18 TPI, just hone the top. Right, just roughly see where we're going to be. 2, 3 should just about do it. I want to be lower so I can bring the tool in from underneath. I need a bit more light. Not going to do it, so I can come back a couple of grooves. Well, somehow I seem to have grooved the foot as well, but I don't think that's going to be a major issue. Trim it up just by rotating that a little bit, and again, before you do something like that, it pays just to sharpen it off. Take the burr off the top, such as it is, and then hone the underside. Can't remember if I sanded the bottom or not. I'll do have to go at it with a bit of the blue, 240 grit. And this will get oiled after it's dried. So at the moment it's kind of, I think it's August the 20th, so this will have to be completed within the next couple of days, so I'll oil it anyway when it's just dried out a bit more. So that's there. This is green timber, so it needs a little protection just in case there's still some residual moisture there, so that's a bit of plastic goes around the foot. And there we are. So the next tricky bit, or the tricky bit really, is to try and get this nice even wall where the bark is, so it looks even all the way around the rim. It doesn't matter quite so much what happens further down. Back to the 3/8 gouge. don't think I've ever done anything quite like this, so it's an adventure all the way around. Speed up a bit more now, running at 1600. Be a wee bit better than that. So I need to come up with the shear scraper. So the main thing I'm after here is an even wall thickness. Now I'm projecting the curve down into the middle of the bowl for the moment, and then it'll be much better if I can tilt that up and get a shear scrape rather. And it looks better if we don't have that little snatching sound. Good. Teeny bit of kind of picked up grain there, I think will sand out. It's almost below the rim, might even be about to cut it out anyway. So now I need to project the outside wall up to there, so my entry cut is going to be around there. And a depth hole would be a useful thing to have too, so just put a starter hole for that, 3/8 spindle gouge. Now, in this case, I want to measure from the rest as to the depth required. So I've got about, I can barely see, of course the foot's the right size for the chuck. Assume there's that there. So I'm now looking for a mark there, which is slightly, yes, if I have that mark about the center of the rest, I should be okay. Should be okay. Now I like to get to the bottom of the hole so I can see where all the other cuts are going. I'm going to have my little pool of colour at the bottom. Come down a little bit. You'd probably like to see how thin it is, thick it is. It is about, yes, that doesn't give me a very good reading because I need to just round that over. So, quick adaptation of the end. Right, so it's about a quarter of an inch. do need to remember that there are grooves up the outside. So that feels not too bad. And probably go a little bit more there. And try and keep out of the way of the camera. And around the bottom, I'm going to use a bowl scraper. I like to use a radius just inside the curve I'm trying to cut. Don't use all of this edge at once. That can come down a little bit more at the bottom, which is good. Yep. Normally I would get a hand round the outside, but a little bit kind of risky with that long wing. If you keep the dust off the top of the tool, you get a bit of reflected light in there. It just gives you a little more, I think you can see a bit more. Feels pretty good. Lovely. So sanding this, I want to do the bowl first and just make sure I want to maintain an angle just there. And that's done mostly by sanding. So I'll do the inside first with 180 grit. The first kind of 10 seconds or so it really clogs up the abrasive, and then there's enough heat in the friction builds up enough heat that dries the surface enough to start getting some dust. Send it in reverse as well. I think I really needed to do that, but pretty smooth. 240 grit. Sanding this by hand far too risky, so I use power sanding for that. With the lathe off. That's really for the outer part. Now, just to get the rim done, the inner lip rather of the rim. I'm after a definite corner between the bowl and the rim. That was 180. This will be 240 grit. So that's got the inner lip done. Right, that's it. I think I'm going to change the foot a little bit. Apart from anything else, it shows you something else. And so what I need for that is something to go over the chuck, over the bowl to fit into. Project from something else, so it's got a shoulder, so that just goes into the chuck and matches up. I don't want that on this one, so that comes off. 3/8 spindle gouge. Oops, centre work goes the other way. So this is in grain, so hence cuts need to go downhill. Ooh, that would even just stay on there. Really would have been safer to bring up the tail centre. Anyway. Nice to live dangerously occasionally. Oh, I'd like to think you can get it off. People who aren't sure about jam chucks. Oh dear, dear, dear. Thank goodness for that. So that's that one. Let's have a closer look up here. So here's the finished bowl, oiled up, and that's brought out the colour much better. It's not what I had in mind when I started. I don't normally do these kinds of rims, and I had no idea I was going to put some grooves up the side here. That was a spur of the moment thing. I think it looks pretty good from some aspects. I'm not wild about this, of course, the way it kind of slopes up to the side. That side, not too bad. And as a piece, I make things to be used, and I'd be quite happy using this for nuts or chips or some small, fairly dry stuff like that. You could even wash it up; it would probably survive quite happily, provided you do it with some care. And as a little bowl, it should survive everybody currently alive on this planet. But who knows?